Hi, folks. This is Rajesh Durbala. Hope you are doing well. Welcome to Rajesh Durbala Tutorials. And in this session, we are going to discuss service marketing. Now, let's go ahead and see what's in store for today and what are we going to learn. These are our learning outcomes. First, we would like to analyze the scope of service marketing. What could be included in the services marketing and what is not a part of service marketing. Then we would like to understand the characteristics of service marketing. Then we would also like to understand the customer expectations and the zones of tolerance. And we will also try to understand the service marketing mix. Fine. Let's get started. Let's get to know what each of them are. Now, what is included in the service marketing? Now, I have taken this tangibility spectrum. Okay. On the y-axis, you would see things are tangible. On the x-axis, the intangibles. So here, the more things are tangible, for instance, the plant and machinery, anything like which tangible means something that you could see, touch, hold. You can throw at someone, you can hit it. Okay. So you want to break it, you do whatever that is tangible. And intangibles are things that you can only feel or experience. You can't hold them, you can't touch them, you can't break it. Okay. So, for instance, let us say plant and machinery, that is solid, that's purely tangible. So, on the tangibility spectrum, you usually find the products. Like, for instance, I have a carom board for my children that is tangible. They can play with it. Okay. They sometimes go and sit on it, they jump on it. So that is purely tangible. And at the same time, things which are entirely intangible, for instance, the services. Okay, I go to watch a movie. Now, when I go to watch a movie, I just go and see the movie. I can't take the movie and put it in a wrapper and bring it home, right? I cannot just carry the movie home in a carry bag. The same way, education. I go to some coaching, some training. The trainer trains me. I attend a pep talk. A motivational speaker is giving a lecture and I'm totally charged up. But at the same time, I cannot bring that talk into my pockets, right? I cannot hold it. I cannot put it in my pocket. I cannot carry it in a carry bag. I cannot put the same thing in the showcase of my home. So such kind of a things which are purely intangible could be classified into services. They're pure services. Okay. And as we see, as economy is evolving and a lot of services are coming up, which are falling in the cusp of the tangibility and intangibility. Now, for instance, let us say we order food on Zomato or Swiggy. Now, over there, it's also the quick delivery that we are expecting. Along with that, we are interested in the good quality food, tasty food, piping hot food. So, what is the kind of service that Zomato, Swiggy, or any of these e-commerce portals like Amazon or Flipkart, what they're providing us is a combination of both tangibles as well as intangibles, right? So that becomes that, for instance, like that falls in the midway somewhere between something that is tangible and intangible. For instance, let us say I gave the example, I'm using the example of consumer durables. For instance, let us say I buy when thinking of buying a car, let us say, in such a case, I buy a car, but while I'm buying a car, I also think of the service network that the particular brand offers. So, what I'm looking for is a combination of both tangibles as well as intangibles, right? So this is what could be included in services, right? So the things which are purely intangible could be into services, but things which are falling somewhere in the middle of the tangibility and intangibility spectrum, you have a combination of both services as well as products, right? Moving ahead. Now, these are the several paradigms in services marketing. Now, first and foremost, service is a process. Service, a particular service cannot be considered as an isolated event. Any service delivery process, it goes through a series of events, lot of minor cogs, go together to create an orchestrated service experience. So it's never a single event. For instance, I'm delivering this lecture. Now, it's not that I'm spontaneously or impromptu delivering this lecture. I need to plan the content. I need to organize my content. I have to create my slides. Okay, I have to identify the learning outcomes. What examples need to be used. So it's all the series of events when put together creates that experience, right? You go to watch an orchestra or an opera where it's not that what you're seeing, the culmination of what you see and experience is a combination of several events that have occurred before the final experience. Excuse me. And so I would say that service is a process, right? Then you have this classification of services. You have various classifications of services, like we would say the people processing services, or the product or possession processing service, mental stimulus processing, and information processing. They are quite simple. Now, for example, if I say people processing, now here what simply happens, okay? Here what we are trying to understand that majorly the people processing services are talking about where people are involved in delivering a particular service, right? Now, here, let us just take an example where in this people processing, I go to any restaurant, okay? There are chefs who process the food. There are the waiters, they process the service, they do the delivery. So that is what is the people processing. If I go to a salon, now what does a salon personnel do? The hairstylist, he asks for you the kind of a style you require. They process your hair, they make it ready, they do the cut, then they wash it. So all these things is people processing services, okay? And then you have product or possession processing services. Now here, when you are doing this product or processing, here what exactly happens is you simply have, generally, just let us think about a warehouse, okay, where the products are stored. Let us talk about a cold storage where the agricultural products are stored. They are kept in ideal condition where they do not get rotten or spoiled. That again is a product processing. The same way, for instance, let us say any of these e-commerce portals. Now what they do, when you place an order, they pack it, okay? They pack it, they then see that it is packed in a proper manner. It doesn't get damaged or destroyed during the delivery process, and they try to make or they ensure that the product is delivered at your doorsteps in the best possible condition and at the fastest possible time. So that is what is the product processing services. And at the same time, possession processing. Now, for instance, let us say it is all about the transfer of ownership, okay? Like you have the real estate brokers. What they do, they facilitate in the transfer of possession of any property. Person A owns a property and person B wants to buy that property. These real estate brokers, they facilitate that deal where the possession is transferred from person A to person B. Such kind of things are possession processing services. Then you have mental stimulus processing. You must have attended any saint, okay, the sermons of any saint. They preach, they give you the values, they teach you the religious beliefs or give you the spiritual insights. What are they trying to do? They are trying to create that mental stimulus within yourself. We attend a lot of motivational talks where we listen to the motivational speaker. What does the motivational speaker try to do? The motivational speaker is trying to create that mental stimulus, okay? So that is what is the mental stimulus processing services. Likewise, you also have this information processing services. That is mostly for the consulting firms, the market research firms. They capture the information, collect the information, gather the information, process it, and they try to extract the insights which are useful for business decision making. So such kind of consulting firms like BCG or McKinsey, they come under this kind of information processing services, right? The next paradigm of services marketing is do it right the first time. In services marketing, it's very, very important that you get things right in the first instance itself, probably because you may not get a second opportunity. It cannot be possible, right? If I go to a hairstylist and the hairstylist gets things wrong and he says, sorry, I got things wrong this time. Next time, definitely I'll make it up for you. I'll do it better in the next time. So, consumer can't tolerate such thing. Same way you go to a doctor, okay, he performs a surgery and suddenly he says, oops, something went wrong. Okay, now at this point of a time, he say, okay, this time it's wrong or I did some mistake. Next time I'll ensure I do it right. Do you think the patient or the consumer over here is willing to tolerate, or would the consumer be alive to tolerate that? So as far as services are concerned, it is very important that you need to get things right in the first instant itself. And then the next thing is speed, speed, speed. What is most important and paramount in the matter of service is speed, the pace at which you proactively approach to customer complaints or customer requests. Okay, customers are not willing to wait. That's more important. That's very, very important for you. Now, at this point of time, for instance, let us say you go to a doctor for some kind of a medical advice or medical intervention, and you go to the doctor and you see the doctor is busy watching a web series and he says, okay, I'm busy today, come tomorrow and I would definitely take care of you. Not acceptable, right? So in services, the pace, the speed at which the service provider responds to your problems is of paramount importance. And then another paradigm that could be discussed is you need to keep the customer perspective always. You have to keep the attention, the details of the consumer in mind while you are providing the service. Go to a tailor. You want a business suit stitched for yourself, probably for an upcoming conference, and you tell or you advise the tailor that you want a suit to be stitched in a particular fashion. But the tailor, he feels right that it's not right and he does it the way he wants. Okay, and you were planning for a business suit, he creates some fancy suit which could be good for parties or something. Now, would you accept such kind of a service? Probably no, right? So that's what you have to keep the customer's perspective in mind while delivering the service. Then what are the characteristics of services? Now, some vital things that you need to remember, as we have already discussed: intangibility. Services are intangibility dominant. So we cannot see that service. We can only just experience that service. So that is, again, remember, this is intangibility dominant thing. Okay. And then low price sensitivity. When it comes to services, it doesn't always happen this way, that if the prices go down, the demand for services go up. And when the prices go up, the demand for services go down. Okay. Now, if I need a medical advice or a legal advice, now, whatever the price is, I have to take it. It's not that, okay, now the prices are high, I'll wait for the prices to go down, then I'll come for my treatment. It doesn't happen that way. If I need a haircut, I need it now. It's whatever the price, right? So it doesn't happen that when the prices are high, the demand goes down, and when the prices are down, the demand goes high. Okay. So in services, that's the point you need to understand. And then there is no concept of inventory. That is to say, what is not sold today cannot be carried forward for the next day. For instance, let us say if I'm into the business of movie theaters, I have an auditorium with 500 seating capacity, 300 gets sold out, 200 are left out. I can't carry forward these 200 left out seats for the next show, right? So if it couldn't be sold, it's waste. The same thing applies for any airlines or transport companies. If I couldn't sell some seats, that's waste. It cannot be, carried forward to the next trip. So there is no inventory in services. Then we have this customer expectations and the zone of tolerance. Okay, quite simple. Try to understand. Customers have that ideal state, a desired service that is required. So customers have that perception of the desired service. And if they get the adequate service, whatever is required, okay, probably they'll be satisfied. And if anything is below the adequate service, that leads to dissatisfaction. But if you provide something that is desired, probably that can lead to delight. Okay, so now the gap between the desired service and the adequate service, that is what is the zone of tolerance. Okay, and that these things are affected by, now for instance, my desired service. When I go to a restaurant, okay, I expect some basic courtesy, the way I would be served, okay, the hygiene, the cleanliness, the taste, the food, the decor, the ambience, and all these things. I have certain expectations when I go to a restaurant. Now, at that point of a time, the question is, how did I create those expectations? How did those expectations come into my mind? So primarily, these could have been derived, or these could be a function of, one is an ideal service image. We usually have an image in our mind that if I go to a, classy restaurant, these are the basic things I would definitely get. So that creates a basic ideal image in our mind. So we would like to match the service that we receive with the image in our mind. Okay, and at the same time, the personal needs, I may have certain specific needs based on which the desired service is altered, right? And then my past experiences, I must have visited some restaurants in the past and I have experienced some service. So in the future or at present, when I'm going to any restaurant, I would carry forward those experiences, those memories from my previous visit to the restaurant, and I would expect similar thing or better thing. Okay, so my past experience as a consumer also creates that ideal state of desired service. And then moreover, the service providers, they give you they do a lot of promotions, advertising, communications. That also creates an image in your mind. They create that desired state or desired service level in your mind. Okay, when I see the communications, when I see the advertisements, based on that, I start expecting certain things from the service provider. I start getting that desire. Okay, these are the things that I'm going to get. And then the same way, the word of mouth publicity as well. My friends, my relatives, my colleagues, all these people may be speaking about certain services. They must have experience. So listening to them, I also start generating or developing some kind of expectations in my mind. That is what is the desired service. And then the adequate service. Okay, many a times the situational factors play a very important role. Usually when I go to a restaurant, probably I could be very picky, finicky, or choosy. But let us say if I'm driving on a highway, a long drive, and I feel hungry, I see a small eating joint, and at that point of a time, I'm not sure when would I get a good, decent place. So probably I decide to stop, halt at that small little eating joint and have my lunch. Now at this point of a time, I know that I'm somewhere in nowhere. Okay. So at this point of a time, when will I get my next meal or lunch or whatever? I don't know. So at this point of time, I may not be that picky, that choosy, or that finicky, right? What I can do is I can simply accommodate with a basic food, which is okay, hygienic for me. So what is happening now? The situational factor is creating an adequate service. Okay, if I get decent food, that's enough. I'm not choosy about the rest of the things. So situational factors are playing a role. And then you have the perceived service alternatives. I also may have various alternatives in the mind. Okay. Now, based on those alternatives also, my adequate service threshold will vary. If I see that some alternatives are there and I see joint, the small little eatery which I just figured out on my highway, I may be skeptical about holding over there and having a complete meal over there. Rather, if I find some biscuits or some juice somewhere, okay, I would manage with that, and I would like to halt at a decent place, right? So the point is, if I have some alternatives available, probably again my adequate service threshold may alter, and then I always have that predicted service in my mind, and that predicted service is molded based on the company's communications, okay, their advertising, the word of mouth, all these things create that predicted service, and that predicted service also has that or creates that threshold in my mind that this should be the minimum adequate service. Now just see, after Oyo has, after Oyo rooms has spread its wings in Indian market, now what is happening is whenever we book any hotel for a stay, we have the basic adequate services in our mind, right? Earlier, when Oyo was not there, we never had an opinion like what could I find in any basic lodge or anything. But once Oyo has penetrated, I have that adequate, means I basically know that I would have a clean bed, my washroom would be sanitized. So all those things, the basic amenities, the basic needs are already there in the. That means that is the adequate service level threshold which has been created in our minds. So that is what is adequate service. Now, whenever there is a gap between these two, there is a zone of tolerance. That is to say, how much I am willing to tolerate this gap. Now, the zone of tolerance could be broadened based on the decision criteria. Now, for instance, if I'm just going for satisfying my hunger, if I'm going to a restaurant just to satisfy my hunger, for me, hunger was the decision criteria. But if I'm going for an experience, and if experience had been a decision criteria, then the way I would tolerate the gap, okay, between the desired service and adequate service, I may not be willing to tolerate. Means the zone of tolerance would be minimal if, okay, understand this, the zone of tolerance would be minimal if my decision criteria was experience. But if hunger is the only thing, then I will have a larger zone of tolerance. Likewise, competition, okay, if there is a lot of competition available in the market, if I find multiple restaurants nearby clustered together, then if I don't get what I desire for, then probably my zone of tolerance would be minimum. I would switch, I would go to a next restaurant. But if there is no competition, I don't find any alternatives. At that point of a time, my zone of tolerance would be wider, broader. Okay. Same way, uniqueness of the service situation. Now, there could be a situation which is quite unique. Okay. Based on that uniqueness, also my zone of tolerance would vary. Now, if I just, if I'm driving on a highway, my car breaks down, at that point of a time, I have no choice but to get my car examined by any roadside mechanic as well. So at that point of a time, whatever kind of service he provides, whether it is a very professional kind of a service or not, my zone of tolerance would be quite high. Okay, it would be broader. But at the same time, when I go to my service center, okay, for the regular checkup and all, at that point of a time, my zone of tolerance would be quite minimal. Okay, I would have be zero tolerance. I would have a zero tolerance for any kind of a service gap, right? So these are the things. This is the thing that you have to understand: the customer's expectations and the zone of tolerance. Quite simple, quite practical. Okay. Then what goes into the services marketing mix? You have the same normal things, okay, that 4 P's, as we say: product, price, place, and promotion. I have already covered the basic 4 P's in a previous video. I'll definitely share that link in the description so that you can watch that. In addition to that, you have additional 3 P's, that is physical evidence, the process, and the people. Okay, the people are again quite important. People help you to deliver the service. The more qualified, the more motivated, the more trained your people are, they would be in a better position. They will be equipped the right way to deliver that service, right? The same way, the processes are again very vital in order to provide a standardized service delivery. Okay, the series of events, the way they are structured, that helps you in providing the standardized delivery each time, every time, without any variations. So that also is very important. And then you have this physical evidence. Physical evidence talks about the you know the it is just an evidence of service delivery. I have a I just go to a bank for a fixed deposit. I just give them a money and they say it's done. Okay, thank you. I'm not interested in that right now. I'm not willing to trust them. They need to give me that receipt. They need to give me that fixed deposit bond. That is the physical evidence. Without that, the service that they are claiming to be providing, I may not be trusting them. Okay, so these are the seven marketing. This is what we call the augmented marketing mix, where three additional P's come into play. Okay, a new P is being added to services marketing, which is the eighth P, which probably people call, that is pace. As we have already discussed in services marketing, pace, the speed at which you respond to customer needs or their complaints, that also becomes quite vital for your service marketing and service delivery. I hope you liked this lecture and found it informative. If yes, do like, share, and subscribe. Spread the good word about the channel. Stay safe, stay happy. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a nice day.